I look forward to more younger families staying here, not just getting an education and leaving. And I do see that. I do see that. We do have a lot of buildings, but they're buildings that are being renovated and, having new businesses. This is a perfect seedbed for things like that because we are somewhat of an isolated community. And my dream, my hope for Americus is that it will truly be the shining city on a hill that is the byline.
Welcome to the Americus Podcast, where we pursue what it means to become a next level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. I'm your host, John Schroeder, and today I am with my friend, Miss Kay Snipes. Miss Kay is the owner and operator of Topiaries right here in Downtown Americus, Georgia. And she's so much more than that, and that's what we're going to be getting into today. And so, Ms. Kay, we talk a lot on the podcast about what it means to neighbor well together. Neighboring is super essential in any relationship, how to connect with people. And a great question that we love to ask always is, who are you? Not just what do you do, not what can you do for me, but who are you as a person? And so if someone were to ask you that question, how do you describe yourself, Ms. Kay?
Well, I think the first word that I use to describe myself is that I am a creative. I have the ability to think outside the box, to visioneer things. And so that would be my number one word for myself.
I love that. Now, is that something that's always been a part of your life, or is that something that has kind of been shaped and molded by various things throughout your life?
Pretty much shaped and molded. I grew up in a small town here in Georgia, in Cuthbert, Georgia. And I was the oldest daughter of three girls, but I lived in a bi-generational family. Okay. Our grandparents, my mother was the only child, and so our grandparents always lived with us. Oh. So it was such a blessing because my grandmother was an outside person. She loved the yard, loved landscaping, loved floral arranging. And then my mother was the insider. She liked decorating, cooking. And so I had the best of all worlds. And so I was exposed to people that were very creative. And so they allowed me to be creative.
Yeah. Now, sometimes when people mention about their creativity and being creative, it also means that they don't like to stay in the lines. Is that something that you were able to balance as a child, or were you kind of all over the place too when it comes to just kind of following the rule?
No, pretty much I stayed in the lines. Being the oldest child, that you have those firstborn things, and I didn't really fully develop my creativity until I left home.
Okay.
My mother was a very strong personality. She was an extrovert. And so I really didn't come into my own until after I left home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you go straight into college? Did you go into the workforce? What was that like for you?
I went to college. As a matter of fact, I went with my high school sweetheart who went to the first grade with me.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's the beauty of living in a small town.
That's right. So, all right. So you're building out kind of your own identity, right? Who Miss Kay Snipes is. What were some other things that helped shape and form that during college years or the beginning of workforce?
Well, I had some very special people in my life. I married early. I married after 1 year of college. I married at 19. And then I lived here in Americus. We lived here in Americus right off of Leaf Street.
Okay.
And then we moved to Atlanta, where my husband was in pharmacy school, and we lived with his aunt.
Okay.
So here again, living with family, and she was very, very instrumental in just teaching me so many things. I remember one time, I had never driven in a large city at all until we moved there.
Wow.
And so one day, she and I always rode to work together. We worked at one of the malls there, and one day she just threw me the keys and said, "It's time to learn." Wow. And I think about, she was in her 60s, close to retirement. And then here I was like 19, and she was just really putting it all on the line, letting me learn how to drive. So yeah.
That's amazing. And now when we're talking about topiaries, that's obviously a certain kind of creativity, design. What drew you to like things like landscaping or gardening or just plants in general? Where did that begin to really start to form?
Well, that was the influence of my grandmother. I spent a lot of time outside. I love nature. I love birds. I love being in the woods. I love flowers. I love gardening. I'd never had a garden until I married my husband. That was one of his first purchases was a harvester.
Okay.
A plow.
Yeah, okay.
His grandfather gave him a plow. And so I'd never really had a garden. So I got into those kind of things, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Okay. Do you remember some of the first things you ever planted, and how did you do? Did you have to just learn? I mean, probably didn't have YouTube back then where you could just look over everything. So what was it like trying to get that started for yourself?
And you didn't have anything but an encyclopedia at that time.
Yeah.
So, one of the first things that I had was not actually a vegetable plant. It was my first job was working here in Americus at Jason's, which was a dress shop.
Okay.
And a lady at Jason's gave me a cutting off of a spider plant.
Wow. Okay.
And so that was my first introduction.
That's your introduction.
That was my introduction. That's right, to indoor plants.
Wow.
That's one of the ways I got
How did it
involved.
do?
It did great. Yeah. I always had them too. It's so interesting.
That's great. Well, it's amazing how small little things, right?
Yes.
Where people are interacting with one another, which again makes places like Americus unique, where, sometimes in big cities, everyone's just so busy just doing their own things, where someone could just kind of tap you on the shoulder in a small town and say, hey, have you tried this out? So it's important. And then you talked about the generations to having that support system. Did you always have kind of also just a support system through your family through various things?
Yes, I did. My other grandmother was she was a widow. She lived alone, and she loved birds. She had this old white enamel pan. She would go outside with it full of bird seed. She'd throw it on the ground and tap it on the tree, and about 50 birds would just flock in. So I'll never forget things like that.
Oh my goodness. My wife would flip out because she's just not a bird person. She loves birds. She loves nature, but she sees a bird, she just flips out. So it's, she saw 50 birds just jump in on her. She'd be pretty scared, but they're beautiful. And I love the idea of, what you're doing here in Topiaries, because it's not just about plants and gardening. It's about an experience, about helping people walk through kind of even generational experience of gardening, because you have kind of new things, modern things. You have some old time set things that really just kind of bring out different pieces. Was that intentional?
Yes, it was. One of the first things that I knew that I wanted to have was African violets. My grandmother had African violets, but African violet is... it brings back a lot of memories for people because it's an old-fashioned houseplant. It's one of the few flowering houseplants. And so people remember, I have a lot of people that say, oh, my grandmother had a whole windowsill of African violets. And so that nostalgic feeling soothes you.
I love that.
Those memories, that they bring back.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to have African violets. Yeah.
I did not know that. I mean, I think that there are like things, like especially like spiritual things that everybody had in their mama's house, their grandmama's house. So it's good to know that there's a plant that's like, oh yeah, that was always in my mom's house or my grandmother's house. So, but you left Americus at some point, right?
Yes.
But then now you're back. Tell us a little, just really quickly, just kind of why you left and then why you came back. What brought you back?
Okay, I left, for my husband to get his pharmacy degree. From there, from Atlanta, we moved to Richland, and we had a pharmacy there for 25 years. Then we moved to Florida, where I had 2 businesses there. And then after hurricanes, then we moved back in the area, but not necessarily to Americus. And then eventually, he was working here in Americus, and we had the opportunity to buy a little cabin in the woods, and we said that'd be great. And so that's how I moved back to Americus. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. So when you left, you came back, were there anything that was significant change since you were gone, or is it just still kind of the Americus that you remember?
It's still kind of the Americas that I remember. It's that's the beauty of Americas, is that it still has the small town feel, and that's why people are drawn here. I have a lot of customers from out of town, and they're visiting to tour Plains, to Andersonville, to see the Windsor, and they love it. The fact that we're still a walking community. It's that's a dying breed, and so I'm so thankful that we are still that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were gone and you were living in Florida, and people were to ask you maybe about Georgia or places like Americus, how did you describe Americus to other people?
Mayberry.
Yeah.
Mayberry. Small town life where everybody knows you, and most of the time you're related to half the people there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I realize that people will ask questions because what they're trying to do is trying to make the connection of how they know you.
That's right.
Because they want to know you, and they, so it's just really funny how they'll say, well, yeah, my third cousin used to work there. And I'm like, okay. But that just helps them to relate and say, we could be friends.
That's right.
So that's really nice. So when you moved back to Americus, how long did it take until you opened Topiaries, or were you thinking about other things first before because you said you were in the pharmacy business, right? Okay. So what made that transition?
Well, in the meantime, I had grandchildren. Okay. And so when we first moved back to Americus, I was taking care of grandchildren for a while. So I was, basically doing that. They were all small and diapers.
You were giving back?
I was giving back. I was doing what my grandparents did. They always helped. And so that's what I knew to do. But after they got older, I'm walking around out in our little cabin going, I know there's something I'm supposed to be doing. Because I'm really big into stewardship. And so I'm like, okay, we got this land here. What can we do with it? And so I believe God gave me the idea to put a greenhouse. And so that's what we did. That was one of the first things that we did. And having always been a creative, I always did craft things. I had a booth inside the maze for several years. And one day Chuck said, you need to open a store down here in the basement. I'm like, what basement?
Yeah.
And so he took me down and showed me where Topiaries is now. And when he opened the door, I saw it. I was able to see what it could be and it should be.
Yeah.
And so, I was chomping at the bits after that.
I love that. I love how visionaries, they step into a space and they just know what's possible there. So when did you start Topiaries? And tell me a little bit about kind of those first initial steps, because again, going from, someone who is a creative, a visionary, to actually implementing those things and making sure that everything's there and, you're set up to go. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, this was not the first business. My husband and I have been serial entrepreneurs, so we've had many businesses. So I had that, in my favor of knowing, to write the vision, make it plain. And so about 6 months before I actually opened the business, I began researching. I knew some things that I wanted. I knew some items that I wanted to carry, but I didn't really have a lot of context for where to get these things. You can't just go to the mart and buy a plant,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of research, which I love. I'm a researcher. So that's the time to do your research before you open. So I was putting a lot of time and effort into doing that. And then I opened, and then we had COVID, which was pretty amazing that it was such a great year for me. The first year was such a great year. And I'm sure it's because, people couldn't go out of town, people were at home, and people got more centered into having plants.
Yeah.
Just getting back to the garden. Yeah.
I love that. I love that idea of getting back to the garden.
Yes.
There's a lot of metaphorical things that we could go in that place.
Yes, it is.
And so, okay, well, over the serial entrepreneur, is there anything that you've noticed that significantly changed from starting a business 20 years ago to starting a business now? Or I think the one in Richland is also a small town. So, but anything different that you had to learn or relearn or that would help out a young entrepreneur now?
Well, no, yes, I've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of help. One of our businesses that we opened was a tea room. And one of our first buildings was in Parrott, Georgia. Okay. If you know Parrott, it's just a little street. And there was nothing there. It had been used as a movie set, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
For the Long Riders. And there was an old bank building there. And we knew we were going to open a tea room. We were working on a building in Cuthbert. And so I said, let's just go there and kind of test the market. You know, we can kind of see, because having tea 25 years ago was way out of the box.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was very interesting. One of the first people that I met was a man from the Small Business Development Center. Yeah. And he's like, how'd you come up with this idea? And I'm like, well, as going to market, I began to see different things. You know, I began to see teapots and things like that. And I said, I just saw it was coming, you know, and so we wanted to be ready for it. And he said, I would love to take your project on for my class that I teach at the college and let them write your business plan. I'm like, great, but I don't have time to sit down.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, they'll have to follow me around, and they did.
Wow.
And it was amazing. So I had help like that. And that's what I recommend for people. Don't try to do it all.
Yeah.
You know, you can be really good at some things and you can halfway do other things. Just let the halfway things, somebody else do them. I had to learn that the hard way.
What would you think are the reasons why people are either afraid or intimidated to ask for that kind of help and support?
I think a lot of times they're bootstrapping. They're just trying to, you know, get by with as little as they can. And in the long run, you're going to pay more.
Yeah.
If you don't get the help that you need. And the Small Business Development Center, they have a lot of things for free. So, you know, if you can get for free, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to say, again, even with the new generations that are coming out, I mean, there's seems to be a lot more helpful tools and, you know, educational things that are available to people if they just kind of tap into those.
That's right.
And don't feel like they just kind of have to do it alone. Well, again, going back to just kind of the environment of Topiaries, you know, you started it there obviously as a business to bring something to Americus. Are there other intentions of coming to Americus and starting a business?
Yes, it wasn't my intention to open a business. My intention was to open my ministry.
Okay.
Because my work is my ministry. Everybody's work is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you're not just called to go to church on Sunday and then go to work the rest of the week. Whatever you do is that's your sphere of influence, the people that you are ministering to. And so that was my first intention, was to use it as a ministry and also to mentor and train my grandchildren, to provide them a place to work, to learn how to work, you know, the right way to work.
Yeah.
And so that was the driving force for opening.
I love that. And you know what? The great thing is that every time I've entered into Topiaries, there does feel like there's a sense of peace, a sense of purpose there. There's an enjoyment, there's an experience there. And it's not just because all of the products, the elements are beautiful and they look great, but because there's a spirit there. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for you investing into Americus. I think I've mentioned this before a few different times that you know, young entrepreneurs that are coming in and they're looking at all these buildings and they're thinking, man, I want to start my business here. And there are a lot of obstacles with starting your own business. And so I'm always curious about those that are here that are sustaining their businesses. What are some things they can learn from? But like you said, finding support, finding people that, you know, doing your research beforehand, not just thinking, hey, this is a great idea for me. It's a great idea for our community. Our community needs this. So I think that's really, really important. But even going back to the kind of the metaphor and the ministry of all of these things, when I think about our front yard, so we my wife and I, we're trying to figure out what is kind of like our deep rest. And what I mean by that are what are the things that we just enjoy doing together. And I think gardening is becoming one of those. Landscaping, not like hardcore. Maybe we'll get there one day. But just like planting a couple of different things here and there. And so we're getting excited. I'm trying to learn plant names like hostas. I'm planting some hostas, and so, but when you're doing that, there's a bit of intentionality with your landscaping. And for us as neighbors, we want to create conversations for future connections of, hey, I'm preparing something for you to be able to experience. And so I always equate some of our gardening and landscaping to like setting a table for someone to come and eat. You want to have the plates, you want to have the forks, the spoons, all that kind of things. You want to have the food and the drinks prepared. So you're basically setting a table to invite others. And so when we think about our community, Americus, what are the elements that you feel like we are inviting people into? Just trying to use that illustration. What are some things that are good in Americus that as people come in, they can say, yes, I want to sit and I want to eat here. I want to invest here. I want to plant my family here?
Well, that's one of the things that I try to do at the store is to create that environment of rest because that was the way God created us. The number one thing that people say is, I have a black thumb,
Yeah.
And so you don't. The reason that we love to garden is that it's in our DNA. That was our first job. Was to take the beauty of the garden and expand it to cover the whole earth. And so anytime we create community or we try to welcome, outside people in, our neighbors or whatever, that promotes that sense of the garden, like you said, because that's where we want to be.
Yeah.
That's where we want to be.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're learning about gardening is there are some things that just don't work well in the soil. There was apple trees at Walmart and at Lowe's. And I was like, I would love to plant some apple trees. And we did some basic research and we're like, planting an apple tree is really hard in Georgia or in Americus, at least for us. The soil is just not there. And so learning to understand that you have to have healthy soil in order to plant things to keep them sustaining and growing. There's an ingredients to that. There's elements to that. What do you believe are, when we're talking about neighboring, we're talking about Americus, whether it's here and it's obvious or it's things that we need to work on as a community, what makes healthy soil for community, for people to come in and feel like this is a place where they can grow?
I think communication is one thing.
Okay.
Communication between different kinds of people, different ethnicities, just being open and transparent with people. Yeah, I think that's real important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I've also noticed is being a risk taker, going out and making sacrifices for the sake of others, just to see how far we can go, because someone has to kind of get to that place. Someone's got to communicate. You always say this probably in leadership is like, you always want to over communicate, never under communicate. If it's blurry to you, it's no one knows anything that you're talking about, and so once you get sick and tired of saying something over and over again, they're probably hearing it for the first time. And so what are some things that we can do as a community that would help us to communicate better? What are some things that we need to communicate to one another?
Well, I think one of the things that you said that was a great analogy is you have to know it's not just about the soil. It's that you have to plant the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
You can't plant pumpkins now. You can't, it's, now when you go into the store, they'll have all the seeds for every kind of plant, but you have to plant it at the right time or you're not going to have the harvest that you want. So I think a lot of it is timing.
Yeah.
Is timing.
So yeah, I mean, again, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why we see, in creation with Adam and Eve in the garden and even Jesus speaking a lot about agricultural things, because there's so many different elements to that.
Yeah.
Like you said. And, we have several farmers in our church, and one of them will tell you, we can do everything that we can, but if it doesn't rain, I mean, if the Lord just decides not to do something, there's nothing we can do,
That's right.
So we set it up as much as we can to prepare as much as we can, but then we also just let the Lord do what he's going to do and trust him for that for every year. And so, but it's a constant dependency, is it not? That we're constantly being dependent upon God, but we're also constantly being dependent upon how we relate to one another, not just giving up and saying, oh, that's enough, but let's keep going. Let's keep pushing forward. So what are some things as far as the future of Americus? Look at the future. What are some things that you hope for, whether it's personally or as a business owner, that we can look forward to in Americus that would be exciting or helpful to our community?
I look forward to more younger families staying here, not just getting an education and leaving. And I do see that. I do see that. We do have a lot of buildings, but they're buildings that are being renovated and, having new businesses. This is a perfect seedbed for things like that, because we are somewhat of an isolated community. And my dream, my hope for Americas is that it will truly be the shining city on a hill that is the byline. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I've heard that. I've thought about that a lot. The slogan of the city and kind of the heartbeat of the city. I would love to just kind of go around to every single person who's been here, business owners, all the way to just everyday people, and say, hey, what is our city slogan, or what is it, and are we living that out, and what are some ways that we could do that better? Because if that's our identity, we have to capitalize on who we are as a people. And I feel like that's a part of the communication issues that we might have, is maybe we all want different things, and that's okay as individuals. But if we're going to be a community of people, we have to have some of the same things.
That's right.
The values have to be the same, and the goals have to be the same. And then everything else kind of like, absolutely do your thing, enjoy those things as well. So what are some things that you feel like, whether it's a value or maybe just a goal, that we as a community can kind of get behind? Like what would get you excited if the city, what was it, manager, mayor, council said, hey, Miss Kay, we're going this way. What would get you excited?
Well, one of the things that excites me the most is prayer. I grew up, my mother was an intercessor, and she, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really, 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 really believe in prayer. And I think, as we come together to pray about our city, because every city, every person has a destiny. There's a destiny for Americas.
Yeah.
I mean, the land has destiny just like people do. And that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
For it to be fully what it was intended to be.
Is there anything in particular when you think about a shining city on the hill? I think it sounds like one of the things that immediately go to you is praying. Praying helps out with that identity, that builds that identity.
Yeah.
Are there other maybe values that you would love to see that we would all kind of agree upon as a community?
Well, I think safety would be one. That we would have a safe place. And we would have a sense of community among everyone, among the churches, among people, among, neighbors. When I grew up, it was Mayberry. You might be out, but if somebody else's mother saw you doing something wrong, she was going to call you on it.
Yeah.
And she had permission to do that. So we looked out for each other.
Yeah.
And instead of, okay, I hear the fire engine, whatever. Instead of, just stopping right then and praying for our first responders or whoever, is fixing to be impacted by that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I was thinking the other day, like when we would get, we would get spankings as kids all the time. And my parents would just, go into the restaurant bathroom or whatever. Right. Everybody knew what was going on. And everybody was like, he probably deserved that, and, but it was very communal, like, hey, we kind of want to see that standard. We want to fight for that standard. And now it's like, to even think about, disciplining your kids, it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, everyone's kind of like intimidated about what that could look like. And so it's definitely different, even in the last 20 to 25 years, about what does it look like to raise kids and to have that. So what are some things that you got a chance to pour into to your children, your grandchildren, even through the store, some leadership stuff that have been helpful to them?
Well, one of the first things is that work is honorable. Mm-hmm. To have a work ethic, because work was given to man before the fall. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He didn't just fall and, now he gets to work. Mm-hmm. He was working before that, and it was honorable. And it means a lot to be able to work and pour your life into something that's worthwhile. And so many people don't work at something that they love to do. They're just doing it, just to make a check. And I think that's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
But, and then just teaching and training, this generation, when you work, you put the cell phone down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're stealing. Mm-hmm. You're stealing time from the person you're supposed to be working for. Mm-hmm. And just having a sense of integrity and teaching those kind of things. You don't just come born knowing it. You have to be taught.
Yeah.
And
right.
I mean, my motivation is teaching. I love to teach. Mm-hmm. That's why I teach classes at the shop, because if I've learned it, I want you to know it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I've noticed about, so when I was growing up, going into my first workforce, we started to have cell phones at that time, but they would always tell you put it in the locker. You don't touch it until your break or after work. And it really wasn't as much of a thing as it is now. Mm-hmm. It was like, yeah, I can call a few friends, but there was always a mentality of, I'm here to work. I get that. I don't want to, but that's fine. But one of the things that it always did, it gave you the opportunity to be present with people. Yeah. And I think, again, this idea of neighboring well, one of the values that we can bring as a community is that we can be present with people. We're always not trying to look past you or, try to think about another conversation we could be having, but I just want to be here with you because this is the moment that we have. And I think that is a gift. Our presence is a gift. I know several friends of mine and other people that are wealthy, and they don't mind throwing money at things. They really don't. What they care about is their time, because they know how important that is. And so knowing that the people that have all the resources that we're trying to pursue will look at you and say, don't miss out on just being present with people. It's a shocking thing, I think, for most people, but that's a quality that we need that I think would be helpful here. So when we're looking into Americus again, the future of Americus, maybe even the people who are stopping by your store, what do you feel like gives them, what are they looking for? Why are they coming into your store? Why are they staying here in Americus? Why are they thinking about investing in Americus? What have you kind of heard?
Well, sometimes I don't think people even know what they're looking for. They're just, I've heard people say, I'm looking for a gift and I'll know it when I see it. Well, It's the same kind of thing in the community. They'll know it when they see it. Mm. And the beauty of Americus is, we're not like stores that have 6 or 7 cashiers. Mm-hmm. We can be present with the customers that we have. Mm-hmm. And that's what people want. They want to feel like they can talk to you. They can tell you about their garden. Mm-hmm. They can ask you questions. It's the being present. That's what people are looking for. And they're looking for that respite from the hurried lifestyle of constantly being pressed upon. I have people tell me all the time, they come in the shop on their lunch hour, I just came to get a minute's peace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. You've got the fountains, you've got the music.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've tried to do, is just provide that space where you can find rest.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
And you can create that with the things that I have.
That's right. Yeah.
You
can take some of that
you
home
can take
with you.
it home
You can
with
take
you.
the whole store
and
with you.
You should have your own space where you
that's
rest.
Right. Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's just a chair, your favorite chair, whatever, and your favorite coffee mug or teacup. Everybody needs that place that they can rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you noticed, I would assume there's a lot of tourism that comes into Americus because of different things. Are there any other people that kind of come into Americus that you've noticed that Americus can kind of, in a sense, kind of capitalize on and try to encourage them to continue to stay here and invest here, other than kind of the tourism that we see?
I think it's that small town feel. That's what people want. They want to be able to walk up and down the streets and sit and have an ice cream cone, go and have a coffee at the coffee shop, and, go and just leisurely stroll and have it be beautiful surroundings and, just that place where they feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I've also noticed that the trend of our community, it's kind of hovered around 15,000 people in the city of Americus. Do you see it growing? Do you see it kind of staying the same? Do you see it decreasing over the next 10 years?
No, I'd see it growing. I really do.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of room for growth here. Mm-hmm. I do.
Do you think that there's anything that's hindering our growth right now?
Probably the fact that we're not, like you said, we have the motto, but we don't necessarily have the same values.
Okay.
To get on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are the things that are really important for helping Americus grow and coming together to make it happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been very curious. Like I said, every time I do this podcast or talk with people, I'm always trying to find kind of just the root, the values that make Americus Americus, and trying to figure out how to continue to communicate that over and over again in such a way that it kind of feels like, yeah, this is our thing. I really love what you said. A lot of people just don't know it till they see it. So that's a really great way of saying it, is maybe we don't know how to articulate our values. Or maybe we've kind of lost some of those values that kind of made us who we are. And we're kind of, it's almost like you're running on fumes. Like you still got some, but there's nothing left in the tank. And you're just hoping to make it to the gas station. And so I've tried to notice a couple of things. One of the things I've mentioned over the last few times I've talked with people is really one of the greatest assets that I see in this community is the colleges. It brings thousands of people here every year. And if we can figure out a way to invest into these young college students to stay here, if we have them for 2 to 3 to 4 years, how do we get them to believe that Americus is the place that they should start businesses? Get them as a place to say, I want to start a family here.
Right.
Because one of the difficulties of a community like this are some of the other metrics. Education system is not the best it can be. Crime is not always the best. It's always a little bit more. So young families are going to really struggle coming here because they're realizing this is what I'm going to put myself into. But who's not thinking about that? College students. They're just not. They're just thinking about, is this a good place for me to live? And then when they start having family, they'll probably start thinking about education. But we might have them by then. Does that make sense?
That's right.
So just finding different ways. What are the assets that are coming into Americus? Tourism is a big thing. I think our colleges are a big thing. Even some of these small businesses. Hey, come start a small business here. There's a little bit less maybe capital than other places. So start here, and just kind of see what people find themselves over the next few years kind of staying around. Now, I've noticed that, throughout the years, you've been involved in different, city events or programs. I noticed something on Facebook, I think it was about a year ago or 2 years ago, something that's all about tea class. Was that something that you did a couple of years ago? But these programs, do you try to find ways to, as far as whether it's personally or as a company, to get involved in kind of the city life and try to network a little bit? And what is that like?
I do. Like I said, I teach the classes mainly to just to invite people into the space and to welcome them and to provide, things that maybe they'd never thought about or things that they never thought they could do. Or after COVID, people really wanted to get back together again. They wanted to get in groups again, to do things, as a girls group or as a church group, and providing those things. You can't always find that in a big city.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, do you normally participate in the First Fridays, the theme stuff, the bigger events in our community, or do you just like to go as a participant and just show up and walk around town?
Yes, I don't participate in some of the First Friday things because I'm older, and I didn't live here in Americus. I lived in Preston, so I was having to drive after dark, which is not very good for people that are older. They don't like to drive after dark, and so it wasn't feasible for me to do that. But I fully support that. I support what they're the Downtown Association's trying to do to make us vibrant.
Yeah, absolutely,
and keep help young families get out and have things to do with their children.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, it's one of those things where, once we find kind of those niches, things that help, I know there's several events throughout the year that are more successful than others. And so continuing to do that, and whether it's, either having something on the calendar just to have something on the calendar, or change those in and out to see if you can be, more beneficial to that. But we also talked about, over the last, few years, just kind of some of the bigger things like infrastructure, making sure that as people come in, do we have a place, that is continuing to evolve and get better, and over time as people come in, when people come in from, 600 people come into an event, we want to make sure that our streets are cleaned, things like that, that people
exactly.
are like, oh, they really care about this town. Maybe I should come here, and so when we have people, we need to take advantage of that for sure. Well, we talked about kind of the small town mindset, which I think, again, it's one of the things, if not the most attractive thing about us, is that we act like a small town. We want to know people. What are some barriers or negative things about a small town mindset that could actually hinder our growth?
Well, sometimes we don't want it to get any bigger. We want it to stay small. We want to have that control so that, because when things do grow, you don't always have control of that growth. It doesn't necessarily grow in the way you want it to grow. So I think that's a barrier. Yeah. It's just being open to growth.
Yeah. And so it would be good to find ways to, again, communicate our values in such a way that if growth does take place, that's the growth that we want.
That's right.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so again, creating a soil that helps us to say, this is what can be planted here. And so if we can create that kind of environment, then people that are here, if they want something different, they'll recognize, oh, you can't do that here. But do we actually know what we want to be here? Because I think also a small town mindset, or maybe just the Southern hospitality, is things where you'll never say someone to their face what you really feel about them sometimes, right? And that can actually hinder, especially when it comes to businesses, because if you don't want to be honest and say, hey, that's not going to work here, that's not what we're looking for. If you just look at them and say, hey, I hope things go really, really well, but it's your job to make sure that a business is successful or not, but you're not communicating that to them, it's going to be really stressful on a young entrepreneur, because you're not being honest about what can work here or what can't work here. Does that make sense? Like making sure that we don't have that small town mindedness where we actually hinder growth because we're not honest about what we want to grow here.
Well, and another thing that will hinder growth is that if we're all trying to just do me and mine, and we're not cooperating. In a small town, if one business thrives, everybody's going to thrive. And so not being afraid to partner with other businesses and because there's enough for everybody to go
Yeah.
go around.
Yeah.
Like I said, if we create that community where we've got niches, then it's going to be better for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because when people come here, they do want to walk.
Right.
They want to see several different things, and that's really important. And so, yeah, just communicating those things I think would be super helpful. Well, we're kind of getting to the end of, kind of the larger corporation. Like, what can the city do? How can the city, what are the values? What are some things that you just do as just kind of as an individual that helps build kind of that neighboring mindset for yourself, and you would encourage others just to continue to do, hey, every day do this, to continue to grow individually, but also in relationships with other people?
Well, one thing that I do is I have a platform that's called Women at the Gates, because I really, really want to minister to especially young women entrepreneurs.
Okay.
To help, like you said, to help them understand that the more you have community and you have older, wiser people and wise counsel, the faster and the farther you'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I do is I have a how to pray for your business. Because praying for your business is not just praying for you. Mm-hmm. Like I pray for my customers. I pray for my employees. I pray for the other businesses here in Americus. Mm-hmm. I pray for my vendors, like the UPS person, the FedEx person, the person at the post office. I mean, it's praying for those people in the community that are affecting me or that I'm affecting. Mm-hmm. Those are some things that we can do. Yeah,
absolutely. If a business owner or an entrepreneur feels isolated, what would you say to help them get more connected?
Yeah, come talk to me. Mm-hmm. Be willing to talk. Be willing to ask questions, mm-hmm. and talk to somebody who's had multiple businesses.
Yeah,
successes and failures, mm-hmm. and and learn from somebody that has white hair.
Yeah. Well, and also, again, somebody who has sustained a business over time. I think it's really important to recognize those things and being able to start and stop and start and stop. That's really hard. It's really hard to start one business, but you've had multiple businesses. And so you've learned over time what works, what needs to take place. But also, I mean, people, what I've said over and over again is that young entrepreneurs or business mindset people don't mind hearing the word no. They just keep going. They're just like, no, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And if you don't believe, that's okay. I'll go find someone else who will believe. I'll find someone else who sees it. And so I think at some point, though, in a small town or just because of different means and obstacles, that word no can feel as if it's attached to them. And how could you encourage someone not to let that be the defining factor? Because they may say, well, you know what? I reached out to 5 businesses and no one reached back out to me. So it doesn't work. I would probably say, how did you reach out to them? Did you email them? Because they're probably not going to respond to you in email. Did you go and see them? Did you go ask them about their business? Did you get a chance to get to know them a little bit more? Did you pray for them before you entered? Those types of things that I would try to encourage someone and say, let's just make sure that when you say I went to go talk to 3 or 4 other businesses and I didn't hear anything back, if that was a valid way of doing it in the first place. But is there anything else, like when you think of someone who's just had that, maybe their excitement has turned into sarcasm in a community like this?
Well, I think the more no's you get, you're closer to your yes. Mm-hmm. So, somebody saying no. I mean, most of the ideas that I've ever had for a business were something that had never been done. Mm-hmm. So, the no never bothered me. Mm-hmm. And so
Yeah.
I'm not moved by a no. Like I said, the more no you have, the you're closer to your yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
now, and I remember if I remember correctly, the business that you had down in Florida was affected by the storms, the hurricanes, and things like that. Just really quickly, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of, because that feels like that's kind of a big no or a big hard, like a mountain to climb over. And so how did you kind of walk through that, decide that this is something that now you're going to shift over, and then again, start again? I mean, that's a huge step.
How did I get there? Well, first of all, my faith in God, for one thing. A hurricane may destroy your business, your home, your finances, but I'm still here. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I wasn't destroyed. My identity is not in what I do. Yeah. It's whose I am. Mm-hmm. And so that's what, and I had to work through that. I didn't always know that. Mm. It's hard when you're an entrepreneur, you are your business. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like having a baby. Mm-hmm. And but I learned that. Mm-hmm. I learned that my identity is not in my business. So starting and stopping is that's part of being creative.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything that you had thought about doing and then recognized, no, I need, like, it may have been a version of that, but you had to like grow into that? I think about, like, for example, to be creative, when I do my design work, right? The first draft is never like the thing that I'm like, yeah, that's it. Like, I've finally had to continue to mold and shape it. Do you feel like there were parts of even Topiaries or other things that you're just like, I was going at it with this way, and then I felt a shift or a move, and I ended up doing this instead? Was there anything like that?
Well, I think the hardest thing for any artist to do is to let go of it. Mm-hmm. Is to say, okay, the painting is finished. Yeah. Because you always want to do something else to it. But a business, you're always tweaking. Mm-hmm. You're always tweaking. The market changes, this color's new this year. So you just have to be open to change is good. Mm-hmm. But you have to be willing to change. A lot of people don't like change. They want it the same, and you can't do that in business. You've got to be willing to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I love that.
If it didn't work this way, then you just try another way.
That's right. That's right. Just keep going.
Just keep going. That's right. Don't lose momentum.
That's right. I can't help but think about the Nemo line where the Dora says, "Just keep swimming."
That's exactly right. Good point.
Just keep swimming. So all right. So we get into the last part of our podcast where we do what we call rapid fire questions, which are just basically, one or the other. Is this the kind of person, like, I'll say like coffee or tea, and like you might say none of them. But it's just gonna get a chance to get to know you a little bit better in these ways. So let's start off with that. Are you a coffee or a tea person?
I'm a tea person.
Okay. All right. Is there any particular tea that you enjoy, or?
Yes, my own tea. It's called Liberty.
Let's go. Okay. Do you sell it there at the Topiaries?
I do sell it. Yes.
Look at that. Liberty tea.
Liberty.
I love it. Is it what is it? A particular type of tea, like a sleeping tea?
It's a black tea with jasmine.
Okay. Yeah. Love it. Okay. Do you have a favorite book or an author?
Yes, I do have a favorite book. Okay. Besides the Bible. Okay. Which I love.
Come on.
I read this book when I was 21 years old, and it totally changed my life. It's Reese Howell's Intercessor.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So that's one of my favorite books. It redirected my life.
I love
into
that.
Being the person of prayer that I am.
Love it. All right. Beach vacation or mountain getaway?
Mountain getaway.
Love it. Do you have kind of a hobby or a pastime that you like to do, or are you pretty business savvy right now and can't get out and do some other things?
No, I love reading.
Reading.
Books.
I love that. All right. Dog or cat person?
I have a dog, but I love cats too.
Okay. Nice. Do you have a go-to kind of comfort food that you like to eat?
Chocolate?
Yes. What about early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Nice.
Early bird. Real early.
Yeah, real early. Okay. Do you, what about sweet or savory snacks?
Sweet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
One superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Super strength.
Super strength. I love that. That's awesome. What about a dream travel destination? Any place you would love to go?
Yes, I'd love to go to Israel.
It's a beautiful place. All right. All right. Last thing. Is there anything? Is there a fun fact about yourself that maybe a lot of people may not know?
A fun fact that people may not know. Yeah, I homeschooled my children for 12 years.
Love it. Love it. Now, I would assume when you did that, there probably wasn't a lot of the group and the networking.
There
as
was
it is
nothing.
Today. Yeah,
I had to create my own curriculum.
Yeah. We're definitely blessed by being able to have a little bit of a network there. But yeah. Well, listen, you are an inspiration to me. Thank you so much from coming into your store to knowing you a little bit already through living in Richland and all the things that we're going to continue to see in this city is going to be because of people like you who have been here investing into this city. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for the relationships that we're having. And I'm really excited for the future of Americus, and I can't wait to work more with you for various things. So let us know if there's anything we could do for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. One quick note also is Miss Kay was so kind to give us some of these planters for our stage, and has meant a lot to me. That again, just pouring into our community in different ways that we can. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
All right, we did it!
Yay!
See, and I bet you that was what I would say 52 minutes. Yeah, 52 minutes. Nice. All right, so we're gonna take. You're just gonna sit right there. We're gonna take one more picture.